Hello aspirants, welcome to PW OnlyIAS. I'm here Harpreet Singh with a daily analysis of the Hindu from 14th of November 2024. Let's begin today's analysis. So this is a Telegram account where you can basically find this particular PDF along with what all material you require for the civil services preparation. So what all topics we have taken for today's analysis? So these are the important ones. So there were certain news which have been reiterated again and again for the past few days. So we have not taken up those, but the ones which are important and relevant are the ones which we have taken. For the main topic, a very important topic is written there. That is tea, sugar export and their sustainability, which is mentioned on page number 7. So detailed analysis of this topic has been done there. Then we have the India-US Ocean Dialogue, IPO, COP29 and the $5 trillion draft. PM Ujjwala Yojana, page number 9. So let us see what all these things are there in the newspaper and let's analyze them. So the main topics. The topic number 1, which is again important from the perspective of your general studies paper 2 also and 3, more importantly from the perspective of GS3. India's tea, sugar export raise sustainability concern at home. Now, please remember one thing, when we are growing certain crops, we see, okay, we can get some output out of it through, let us say, remuneration in the form of money. But when we have to see, overall, is that crop which we are growing good? Now, good or sustainable in a way which we say, is it economically sustainable? Is it socially sustainable? Is it causing any other harm also? So from that perspective, if we see tea and sugar, we'll be seeing a lot of sustainability issues are there. We'll see what sustainability in this particular sense means. Along with it, we'll analyze something or case study about millets also and why Government of India is emphasizing on the millets production. Let's see, because what is being discussed in future is in the next slides is basically everything that is mentioned over here. Let's move ahead. Okay, first, when we're talking about the agriculture sector, something very important. What does this article say? It says that India's agricultural export has risen from $8.7 billion in 2004 and 5 to $53 billion in 2020 to 23. So that means close to 6 times rise. So what the crops that are going to be grown from an export-centric perspective, are they good for the ecology, for remuneration in the perspective of the money that the farmers get, from the perspective of social aspect or the rights of the farmers? That has to be seen over here. So let's see. The question of sustainability comes. Now the thing will come is, when I'm talking about sustainable, we always study about a concept of sustainable development, in which it's very categorically written that sustainable development is one which not only meets the requirements of the present generation, but also that of the future generation. That is a simple definition which we see. Now, from that perspective, if we study the definition of sustainability from the agriculture perspective, we have to see certain things or keep in certain things in mind. See, sustainability can be seen from the two aspects. First, true sustainability is driven not only from, let us say, just merely getting the money from the export you are doing, but other factors also play a very important role. How? Over here, we will see ecological aspects. Is it ecologically fine? The human interaction with the, let us say, nature, is it causing some disturbance in that or not? Is it the relationship with, let us say, the living and the non-living, is it disturbing that intricate relationship by growing certain crop? That aspect. Economic aspect, whether, let us say, you're growing certain crop and you see that, okay, it is giving you a lot of revenue from the perspective of the remuneration you get via export. But in true sense, the amount of input you are giving and the output you are giving, are you profiting out of that? Can that be sustained for a long time? Or is it that certain boom of certain crop is there and you're growing that and that is why you're earning some amount of money? So sustainability from the perspective of economic dimension also becomes important. Third is social. Now social over here, please remember, when the people who are, let us say, involved, or let us say agricultural laborers or farmers, what about their rights? What about their working condition? What about their relationships with the community as a whole? Those things also become important. So because if you are dealing about the tea production, you see the rights of even the tree planters and the farmers and the laborers over here, they vary to a great extent, and a lot of issues have been there. When we saw about the tea plantation farms over there in Bengal. We saw a lot of issues and protest raised by the laborers over there. So those dimensions also become important over here. Next is sustainability is not confined to production phase. Very important. Supposingly you have to grow a crop, right? Does it mean merely growing the crop is a dimension I have to study from sustainability? No. For me, before that, what are the conditions of the land where I have to grow? Other all dimensions associated before the sowing time, all the conditions and aspects associated with the production phase, and also after that, that is post harvest phase. So all these things should be sustainable from all these angles. Only then can I say yes, sustainability is there. That is why keeping all these things into mind while you are growing certain crops becomes very, very important. So let us move ahead and see. Let us see the example of tea first, as it is mentioned in detail in the article also. If I see from the aspect of tea, India is the fourth largest exporter of tea, which is worth $641.34 million. And that is, again, this is a huge amount of foreign exchange money that one can gain out of it. Now, fourth largest, that means 10% of the total export of the tea is done from India. So India is a major player in a way, we can say that, and a source of revenue also being earned. Now see, challenges that arise from the perspective of sustainability is a very important thing. Now see why. First is human-wildlife interaction. Now you'll see again ecological dimensions. A problematic situation with the tree plantation is that 75% of the tea plantation are situated at the periphery of the forest. Supposingly this is a tea garden, 75% of the cases it is surrounded by the edges of the forest. Now what happens? Because you have the tea plantation being done there, human and animal conflict will rise. There can be elephants, there can be other animals coming there. What will happen then? Then the planters who will, let us say, owning the land will try to threaten the animals, shoot down the animals, and the conflict between the man and the animal will rise. So this is ecologically unsustainable if you see from a perspective that tea plantation, because of its location in 75% of the places, increases the human-wildlife interaction and conflict that rises. Second is increasing use of chemicals. Now see, 85% of the chemicals used in the tea plantation are synthetic, or the proper chemical pesticides are being used over here. Now what happens? We very well know these have a very negative impact across the food chain and very harmful. We all know that many of them are carcinogenics. Many of them are causing mental health issues. So various problems are there. So automatically we are making the soil full of chemicals. Next, labor issue. Now see, if you see the labor dimension, this also came in the Assam tea plantation gardens also in the case of West Bengal, northern West Bengal region, where the plantation of tea is done. We saw that the laborers, particularly the women over there, who are involved in picking up the tea leaves, they are not properly paid. They are made to work for 10, 12 hours. They do not have a proper accommodation where they can stay, proper supply of food in a way that, because they are working in the tree garden, so they could be given certain meals, they are not given. Again, all these things basically contribute to dismal or a modern day slavery. That is why we see from a sustainability perspective, it is not merely earning this amount. Economically, it is sounding good. Further scope is there, no problem. Are these challenges being addressed? So overall, sustainability is not there. That is a point of concern. When we see it, when we saw over here sustainability, okay, economically we are doing well with respect to tea export. There is no issue. India is such a large consumer of tea. So that means the domestic demand itself is so high, leave alone the export. But do you realize that all these things are going to make the whole cycle, life cycle of tea, from pre-sowing to plantation to harvest, very unsustainable in a way, because merely economic growth or economic aspect is not a dimension of the sustainability. It has to see with the aspect of human being, that is social, ecological, and other dimensions also there. So that is again a problem that is raised in the article that is mentioned. As we move ahead, it's mentioned about sugar. Now one should understand very basic thing, that sugar is something that is widely consumed in India. We are people who love the concept of mithais. We love eating sweets as a part of a daily meal. After eating let us say meals, we want to have some sweet. So something that is widely consumed in India. Now, if we see from that perspective, India is the second largest sugar producer. In 2021-22, this much worth of export also happened. Now see, just imagine. This is again a large number, which you can see that it is, I think, just a large number that is there. Now, if you see the challenges that are there, very important challenge that arises, please understand. The challenge that arises is, if you want to, let us say, produce sugar, you are using sugarcane. Now, sugarcane itself is a water guzzing crop. It consumes a large amount of water. So, in a way, if I see from the perspective of production phase to the from the production of, let us say, sugarcane to the time I get the sugar in a refined form. So if the total amount of water that is consumed, you will realize that for 1 kg of sugar, it's actually utilizing 1500 to 2000 liters of water. So it is a water guzzing crop. That is why do you realize that in regions which are, let us say, having lesser amount of water, particularly do you see in Maharashtra also. Maharashtra had been a good producer of sugarcane, is also. But you see in Uttar Pradesh, it is now the production of sugarcane has risen. Why? In Maharashtra, you see a lot of droughts are there, a lot of water supply. If you see from the perspective of the water is not from the perennial rivers, because the perennial rivers are not there. There's basically storage tanks and are there. Then again, you have during the rainy season, you have the rivers over there. Then only through which you can basically get the water. Again, you do bore wells. The problem over there is that the amount of water that required in Maharashtra is not sustainable for growing this particular crop, as in the case of Uttar Pradesh. That is why you see so many problematic situations arise, because from the perspective of the input that is being taken in the state of Maharashtra is much more from what the output is expected. So this is again very ecologically and environmentally unsustainable. This can be grown in those regions where the water supply is relatively more. In case of Uttar Pradesh, it is fine. Even in Punjab and Haryana, it can be grown. But in case of Maharashtra, where water supply and there's dearth of water, already water, according to the United Nations, India is going to be a water scarce nation by 2025. In that case, it becomes important to plant those crops in a proper manner, which are overall sustainable. Then depletion of groundwater, because again, groundwater is a major source of water extraction, which is utilized for the agriculture production. So again, there is depletion in the groundwater. Biodiversity loss, as various grasslands and savannas are converted into plantations. So various grassland regions have been converted into, let us say, sugarcane producing areas. So what is going on? Over there already, it is the natural ecosystem is being abolished, or let us say depleted or finished, or being made extinct. Along with it, a crop is being grown, which is water guzzing. And if you see from the perspective, again, dietary habits also show that sugar consumption should be limited, because it is already a major concern for the health issues that are there. So overall, if we see, again, economically, a lot of revenue can be earned domestically and export-wise. But if we see from the environmental perspective, it is very environmentally unsustainable. Now, another thing that arises is the workers issue. Workers issue, because if you see the regions of, let us say, Maharashtra, over there the temperature of the regions are very, very high. It goes into 50 degrees. And from the 50 degrees, you see because the various laborers are working in those large fields, they are not provided with any sort of, let us say, gear to, let us say, work on those fields. They are not paid adequate amount so in order to sustain their families. Along with it, you realize there's a lot of caste-based discrimination also happens in those regions, because caste and agriculture are very closely, intricately linked. So we see the dismal conditions of the farmers. That is why one of the reasons for large farmer deaths in Maharashtra is a major contributory also. The worker conditions are very bad. The laborers are committing suicide. They are already into a lot of debt also that they take from the planters, and then they are not able to repay, and then they are like slaves, or the modern day slavery that is there. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to grow tea or sugar. You have to be careful where you are growing. Are the requirements, let us say, from the pre-sowing to the sowing to the post-harvest time, are the conditions which we saw from the environment perspective, from the social perspective, all these conditions are, or from the economic perspective also, are they being met? If yes, then grow. That is why we have the concept of agroecological zones to know where or which crop is sustainable. Now, let us take the example of millets. Now, millet is a very sustainable crop. Even Government of India is promoting the growth of plantation of millets. We saw that export of 62.95 million. Now, this is a very huge amount from the perspective of the extent to which it has grown. Advantages, please understand, it is first of all large domestic consumption base, particularly when the Indians are moving towards a more healthy diet, as they're in the new culture that has come up, more healthy diet. Even the consumption of millets is rising. So that is again an advantageous thing. Along with it, understand that it is a dry land crop, so it requires lesser amount of water or very less amount of water. It is drought resistant, so in the dry land region also, where we see that very difficult to grow other crops which are water guzzling, let us say sugarcane. Instead of that, we can grow this. Then it is nutritionally also rich. So from all round perspective, millet is again a very all round perspective, very sustainable crop. Now, if we want to see the area wise, say state wise millet production in 2023, you will be seeing that this region it is not grown. In other regions also not grown. If we see this red portion, high production of millets is done. If you see from this yellow region, you will be seeing that medium to high production is done. If you see this green region, this and this, you see high to medium, and the other is low. Now because again in Rajasthan region, it is a very dry region, so a lot of middle production is done. This same production can be, let us say, adopted in the other regions also with more intensity. It can be even earn a more export revenue for the country. Along with it, we see that it is environmentally sustainable also. Now, please understand, it doesn't mean that you do not grow sugarcane, you do not grow tree. It is important. What we expect is that if you want to be environmentally sustainable, you want to be ecologically sustainable, you want to be economically sustainable, you have to be socially sustainable also. When these conditions are being met, then you grow a crop. That is why when we talk about, we often have the environment impact assessments for some projects. We also need to have the such aspects, or let us say surveys with respect to what we are growing, and the farmer should be made aware that their sustainability will be questioned in a long term if they do not follow those parameters. That is why concept of agroecological zones, agroclimatic zones, these are important because it helps you to determine which crop needs to be grown where. So let's move ahead. Prelims topics. Inaugurated Indian Ocean Dialogue between US to be held today. Topic 1 GS2 is page 6. So because it has to be held today, so what the details would be, we'll be discussing tomorrow also. So this is the first India Ocean Dialogue in New Delhi to enhance the cooperation between India and US over the Indian Ocean region. Now please understand, a very simple thing is both of them are members of the Quad. Now Indo-Pacific region is a center of the policy making and a core of the Quad group. Now with respect to, let us say, bilateral talk also going on within the Quad group, US and India are again holding a specific dialogue on the Indian Ocean. Because now we can actually perceive this as a subgroup within the Quad, where Indian Ocean centric policies would be discussed between India, and how India and US can basically cooperate. This can also be seen from a mechanism that we need to promote free transport means. We have to, let us say, avoid any conflict with the international body, especially with respect to China. We have to cut down the impact of China's influence on the Indian Ocean region without being explicitly mentioned. And peace and stability in the region is very, very important. Now, please understand, because India forms the largest player in the Indian Ocean region, and that is why it is also a very good partner of United States. And that is why India and United States are both cooperating with each other so that they can have a stable, peaceful and a healthy Indian Ocean region where trade can easily flow and there is lesser chances of any conflict and intrusion from the enemy nations. That is especially the country of People's Republic of China. So that is again a problematic issue. Two sides will discuss measures to promote security and prosperity through the Indo-Pacific region. Now see again, though it is Indian Ocean, but again we know that it is a subgroup of Quad in a way. That is why the focus will be on the Indian Pacific region. Next is topic 2, GS3, page 12, NTPC Green IPO. Now, IPO you will be realizing yesterday, 2 days back. In fact, Swiggy also launched the IPO. Various various companies are launching their IPO. So we should know what IPO is. IPO basically stands for Initial Public Offer. It is a type of issue where an unlisted company, we'll see that, where an unlisted company raises capital by making a fresh issue of securities or offerings its existing securities for the sale to the public for the first time. That means it is making itself public so that people can even buy its shares also for the first time. That is why it is initial public offer. So now let us see first of all, what is IPO? Let us say it is a private company owned by a private person, or let us say 2 persons. Now they want to, in a way, earn out money also. They can use the money for various purposes. So what they do is they will put the, let us say, make the company public for the other people to buy the shares of the company. When they do it for the first time, that is the initial, and then the word public offer, IPO, initial public offer. Then obviously it is like a public company owned by various people, because various people are having the stake in the company, not like previously only 1 or 2 people had. So why is this? What is the reason for having an IPO? The reason is it gives the opportunity to expand because you get a good amount of money. It gives again the awareness with respect to, let us say, what is the potential of the company in front to the people also, because if you get a good premium, if it is oversubscribed means that you have listed certain amount of shares and people buy more shares than they are available. In that case, you see there is the demand of for the company also. Similarly, credibility, that means if it is successful, the IPO, then automatically the credible company is there. Liquidity, more amount of money you happen. And again, top talent, again, it basically attracts best of the culture, best of the environment. Again, better the company, better the work culture. Obviously, it is going to happen. We will see that better employees are also going to be there, hired by the company. So overall, a positive aspect is seen from a successful IPO. Now, if you move ahead, please understand. When we saw about unlisted and listed, please understand an unlisted company is one whose shares are traded onto a public, whose shares are not traded into a public stock exchange. A listed company means a company which has any time its securities offered through a document listed in any recognized stock exchange. One which is listed with a stock exchange, listed. One which is not listed is unlisted. So that is why initial public offer, where an unlisted company which is not registered with a stock exchange is now making itself public, that means through which shares can be bought by the people as a whole, that is done for the first time, is known as initial public offer. Let's move ahead. Regulation of IPO. Securities and Exchange Board of India has laid down the rules required by the companies in order to, let us say, have an IPO to meet a certain criteria before they can make the public to raise funds. Company must have a net tangible asset of at least 3 crore, net worth of 1 crore in each of the preceding 3 full years, must have a minimum average pre-tax profit of 15 crore in at least 3 years of the immediate preceding 5 years. So these are the, again, criterias. Who are allowed to invest in the IPO? Qualified institutional buyers. These are a category of institutional investors that include FPI's foreign portfolio investors, mutual funds, commercial banks, insurance companies, pension funds, they all can. Retail investors, any individual who can invest up to 2 lakhs in an issue can also participate. High net worth individuals, that is retail investors investing above 2 lakh. So these can also basically are allowed to invest in the IPO. Now as we move ahead, we have already done this. So this was the IPO. Unwidely first draft of COP sets 2020 goal of 5 trillion. Now this was very shocking because something that was not expected. This doesn't mean that 5 trillions would be accepted. We had already discussed about COP. I'm going to give a brief idea and then I'll tell you what this $5 trillion thing is. Let's see this. We very well know that under the aegis of the United Nations Framework for the Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, again, discussion on the climate finance is going on, right? Now, the interesting thing is that when it is going on in Baku, we have to decide upon what amount the developed countries are going to give to the developing and the least developed countries in order to, let us say, move towards friendly or the green technologies. Because the middle income, the least developed countries or the lower income countries do not have that much amount of wealth. That is what the discussion is going on. For that, we realize that COP29 refers to the 29th annual conference under the UNFCCC. COP is the annual meeting of the United Nations climate meeting. Now it is being held in Baku from 11th to 24th and the discussions are going on. This $5 trillion thing which is mentioned is like a draft. Right now the discussions are going on. Finalization will take place by 24th of November. Host is Azerbaijan. The key objective of COP29 is to basically finalize the finance agreement that determines the amount of money that developed countries should raise after 2025 to help the developing countries to move towards and adopt those technologies and aspects which are basically going to resolve or help in reducing the ill impact of the climate changes that are taking place, so that the emissions can also be reduced, greenhouse emissions and other environment friendly technologies can be adopted, or what we can say as green technology can be adopted. Now, the new collective quantified goal MCQG is a part of the post 2025 climate finance. We had already done this 3 days back. Over there, we had discussed what is MCQG also. See, we had discussed that this is basically a representation of what amount of finance that the developed countries are going to promise in this particular agreement. We all know that there are a lot of issues with respect to the finance. Difference in the definition what climate finance is. We had done in the previous days also. Double counting and innovative counting. Developing countries often complain that the actual climate finance flows are much lower. We had seen that earlier also, that many developed countries promise that they're going to give such X amount of money, but they basically send the money in a form which is not again truly represents the money in a liquid form which can be used by the developing countries, and that is what creates an issue. For example, let us say they have sent some amount of some technology to the developing countries saying that you can use this. Now supposing if $5 trillion are spent on their development R&D, it doesn't mean that you are sending $5 trillion to the developing countries. So that is why issue of double counting and miscounting basically arises over here. Next, neglect of the adaptation. Focus is on what problem has happened, how to mitigate or resolve them, rather than to let the issue not come up. So we are focusing not on proper adaptation, but rather mitigation of the impacts that have taken place. So that is again a major issue. If we move ahead, we had mentioned previously also what is MCQG, post 2025 climate finance. Again, MCQG is it was a word that was mentioned in the Paris Agreement in 2015, which is again, it is going to succeed the 2009 Copenhagen Agreement, which took place, the summit took place. Over there, the developed countries had actually promised that they are going to give $100 billion annually to the least and the developing countries and the middle income groups, so that they can move towards better or greener technology. But that did not actually happen. Now, what is the new thing? That they wanted that some form of agreement comes where the developed countries basically give some quantum money to the least, middle and the developing countries so that they can move towards green technology. So this is actually represent this negotiation with respect to what that quantum money would be and how it is going to come basically represents the MCQG, which we just now saw. Under this, please understand the problem is that the draft says that $5 to $6 trillion are required by who? The least developed and the middle income groups. Though the expectation from the developed countries was that the least and the middle income group will ask for 1 to 1.5 trillion. But the demand is 5 to 6.8 trillion annually. Now that is why we say, though it has been mentioned, I don't suppose personally that it will be implemented because there are a lot of issues there. Let's see till 24th of November what happens, and this is the update on the discussion of climate finance that is basically going on. Last article, GS 2 and 3, again the impact of PMUY, that is Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana on Jammu Kashmir. So we should know what this scheme is. It is a scheme that was launched in May 2016. It is nodal ministries, Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Aim is to make liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, a clean cooking fuel available to rural and developed poor households, and to provide deposit-free LPG connections to the adult women of the poor household. So that means to make a transition from the traditional firewood to the LPG connections. Because we very well know, according to various researchers, that the using firewood causes a lot of ill health impacts on the women in particular, and also it is a means of formalizing the household, let us say, in a way, formalizing the system or transition from the fuel wood to a more formal LPG connection. Again, there are certain issues also with that we'll discuss. The focus is on shifting towards the LPG connection, and it is registered in the name of the woman first of all. Implementation phase 1, the scheme was launched on 1st May 2016. The target under the scheme was to release 8 crore LPGs connections to the deprived households by March 2020. Phase 2, under the union budget of fiscal year 21-22, the provision for releasing the additional 1 crore LPG connection under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana has been made. Again, recently the cabinet has taken a decision to continue with the scheme further. Current status, if you see, as of March 2024, more than 10.27 crore beneficiaries has been there from this scheme. Fluctuations in the LPG prices and subsidy by the government. Imported by government, India imports close to 60% of the LPG requirements. For consumer protection, to protect the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana beneficiaries from the impact of sharp fluctuations in the international prices of LPG, and to make LPG more affordable to the consumers, the government of India started the target subsidy in this. So that means in order to prevent the rapid rise of fluctuation in the prices, again the government is taking care of them to prevent that fluctuation. But the issue that arises is the prices already are relatively high. For a person who is from a very poor background, for him using a fire would still be easier than spending certain amount of money for refilling those cylinders, because again you have to get those cylinders refilled. You can get the make an initial deposit and get the cylinder, but you have to get it refilled. That is where the problem arises. Now that is again an issue. Target beneficiaries: adult women belonging to the following categories: SC household, ST, backward classes, Antodaya Anna Yojana, T and XT garden tribes, forest dwellers, people residing in island and river islands. Release of LPG connection under the scheme shall be in the name of the women, as I had already mentioned, in order to target women in such. Benefits, again, it is assistance rather than, it provides the, under the Yojana, we basically see the government of India is also making you benefit from a various dimensions. See, it provided for the PMUY connections by the government of India, rupees 1600 for the connection of 14.2 and 1150 for 5 kg cylinder. So again, a cash assistance is also given from the side of the government. LPG refill, again, please understand, is provided with a first time refill free of cost. But again, this is fine, this is good, but next refill you have to pay. First time it is free. Subsidy is also given. Higher inclusion, average LPG consumption of the consumer has increased by 29%. Eligibility, all beneficiaries are eligible for this targeted subsidy. Now see, this for the dimension. Now quickly we'll see the MCQs. Question 1, solution. Question 2, solution. Question 3, solution. Question 4, solution. Question 5, solution. So this was the analysis of the Hindu from today's newspaper. Hope you liked it and enjoyed it. We'll meet and continue with the lecture tomorrow. Take care and Jai Hind.